Do you ever have one of those moments when you sit there and think about where you are in your life and all the things that have led up to a certain moment in that life? When on the one hand you are holding a toy seagull and in the other hand you're holding an AI-powered Birdfeeder camera recording device, and sit there and think to yourself, is this what my life is now? Is this it? Because I'll be straight with you right now, this is one of the weirdest things I've ever talked about on the channel. But the most messed up thing is, I'm genuinely excited by it. This might be one of the most interesting, weird, strange, out there things I've reviewed on the channel. And in today's video, I'm going to review the Netvue AI-powered Birdfeeder. That is right, this is an AI-powered bird feeder. Some words that I never thought would meet in the same sentence, but here we are. This is the world we live in now. This is the Netvue Birdfy Feeder. Now, this is a device for those of you out there that, like watching birds. You might be, a little twitcher, someone who just enjoys going out in the woods and the fens and spinnies and taking a little moment to look at all the different birds and different species that are out there in the world. Maybe you've got a relative out there who's really interested in this sort of thing. Now, we're not unfamiliar with AI cameras here on the channel. Let's face it, AI-supported cameras from brands like Reolink and more, we have talked about. AI-powered surveillance with deep video analysis we talked about on the channel before. And dare I say it, we've mentioned birds now and then on the channel before. But this device kind of merges all of them. This is designed with the benefit of an internal power supply unit there that you can either charge intermittently, which will be weird, or solar powered panel that you can fit to the device. It allows you to set this camera up and it will recognise birds in the local area as they come and feed. Apparently the AI supports well over 6,000 different species of bird that it can catalogue there. It was originally a Kickstarter. The development of this device was towards the end of 2019. It ended up landing and launching on Kickstarter after further development towards the end of 2020, and towards the end of 2021 this device started appearing throughout that time. And again, if you get a moment, I'll try to link to it in the description, do go through that Kickstarter, because some of the features that got added in its timeline, absolutely brilliant. Squirrel detection system, get in. That's again another line of words I never thought I'd see meeting all together in a sentence one night. But let's talk a little bit about this device. Let's get it open for a start before we start talking about those specifications. The retail box is lovely and pretty. Unsurprisingly, this is one of those devices that's going to be more of a gift to maybe an elderly relative or someone that's particularly keen on bird watching there. Or maybe if you've got some, house out in the sticks where you have got lots of different species of bird knocking around and you were going to put a bird feeder out anyway. Now again, remember, that camera is motion detected, of course, and species detected, but you can still use it for light surveillance as well. And no one's going to suspect a bird feed as a camera, but we'll have to wait and see. We've got the Velcro panel there to attach it to your local tree. Let's find out. We've got more card inside there, the setup installation guide there. The device arrives, there's an app you can install for iOS and Android. And with regards to recording, you can record to an SD card inside, but there's also support of their own cloud platform. You get a 7-day trial there. I'm not too sure on the pricing. It might be on screen there. There's a panel there for binding it to the wall if you're going to be screwing it in. We have another bit of cardboard. Inside there further, we have got the feeding bracket, this thing here. I'm not too sure about the colour scheme, but I'm not sure we're going to rag it too much for that. Then we've got its top there, its hat. That's the thing that lives underneath, so it can have a bit of shade. Again, it's it's water resistant, traditional weather resistance there, all built into the IP rating. We open it up inside there, remove more foam. We can lift out the device itself, and as you can see, there is our camera at the back, on the front. At the rear, we've got our Wi-Fi connection there. Our wireless connection there. I will highlight as well, this, like a lot of more affordable IP cameras, one early downside of this I will highlight is it only supports 2.4 gigahertz there. So make sure your Wi-Fi connection, whether you're using a mesh with multiple nodes throughout your home or a single Wi-Fi connection, that you either enabled or have a secondary 2.4 gigahertz band. A lot of users might be using a dual 2.45 gigahertz band in their own Wi-Fi connection. But for those of you watching this that are maybe slightly less sort of network knowledgeable, just make sure that little router that your internet service provider gave you, that connection is running on both 5 and 2.4 gigahertz. I know that's not going to help, but you should be able to find out, checking the Wi-Fi connection on maybe a phone or a laptop. Going into the properties of that network connection will tell you whether it is a dual band or it's going to be running just one of them, and you need a 2.4 gigahertz band, otherwise you can't communicate with the device that's on a 5 gigahertz band with this needing to connect to a 2.4 gigahertz band there. Again, the camera inside can be ever so slightly tilted there. I do not believe that's controllable, pan, tilt, zoom. I feel like that would have stood out. Inside, we can see the panel there inside where we'd put our feed. And again, we will be setting this up for a couple of weeks. So at the moment, when I'm recording this in this, frankly, way too appropriate shirt, again, not planned, but here we are. We're going to set this up for a couple of weeks to get some results and some real data to refer back to into the future. But I will say right now that I'm not against the design. I actually find it quite cute looking from the outset. Lastly, if we look inside the casing there, what we have left, more cardboard. Hopefully this is all recyclable, right? We have inside, let's have a little box, presumably this is our screws and perhaps a charger cable. Let's have a look. Here we've got our standard USB Type-C to USB Type-A charger cable there. We've got the long form screws and raw plugs there inside, and we've got the wall bracket there to mount it on, along with a cover for the SD card slot all inside there. And finally, inside we've got that mounting bracket itself that we use to mount directly into this device and have it loaded up on our wall. So straight away, if we move that on the table, let's talk a little bit about the hardware we've got on offer here. We've already mentioned that it covers 6,000 species of bird and it's AI recognition, something, unfortunately, I don't have access to a garden that has 6,000 different kinds of bird. So hopefully we notice a few, but I apologise if we don't make our way through all 6,000 of them in this video. Now, I mentioned squirrel detection on this, which again, I just love saying. The squirrel detection on this is designed that if you are putting feed out there and something that isn't a bird, more often than not a squirrel comes along to try and nick some of the food, it can recognise a squirrel thanks to that AI, and then you can set up the system to either do a traditional sound siren alert or a voice activated kind of go away, get lost, get away from that. And there is also two-way audio supported on this device as well. So again, audio in and audio out you can manage from the mobile there in the background. On top of that, in terms of recording, they say on the manufacturer's page that it supports up to 1080p full HD recording quality there. I assume that's 8.264, but we'll have to wait and see when we go through it. The frame rate, I imagine, is not going to be tremendously high, maybe 25 frames per second. I'm going to check that in the recording when we go through it. And again, with regards to storage, it supports on the base of that camera a 2.5 supports, let's get that out of there. It supports an SD card slot there at the top, and that supports a 128 gig SD card inside there, a class 10 SD card that goes in. There are compact form ones and none of the larger ones. And again, there is their own cloud services provided, but again, they are subscription based. You are going to have to pay for them. Personally, I would use an SD card in there and use your local phone and not have to pay for it, because the AI supported services are not conducted externally. It's included with the package. You don't have to pay for the additional AI stuff there. Now, the actual the actual triggering is motion detected. So again, if anything moves in front of it, it will trigger it, but it's the identification of the birds where the AI will really step in there. It won't identify cars and stuff like that in the background. In terms of night vision, it's kind of the standard stuff you would expect, kind of 10 meter coverage there, but it will reduce its effectiveness in that scenario. And again, you don't have to use a solar panel on this, but what I would say is having to go in and out and recharge it periodically is going to be annoying, particularly when you've got to mount the thing. So these days, USB connected charging bay, like charging panels, solar panels, are really cost effective. You can get a standard class USB connected one, and I'm sure they supply their own, but you can pick them up very cheaply for around 15 to 20 nicker if you choose, and those solar panels will immediately go into the rechargeable batteries inside there. Now, what I'm going to do is, we've done enough talking about this here in the studio, because let's face it, this is a device that's got to stand on its own 2 feet. So what I'm going to do is get this set up in a nice, bird free area, and then I'm going to leave it there for a couple of weeks with feed in order to find out just how good this is at identifying birds and that camera quality as well. So for now, let's fast forward about 2 weeks into the future and go through these results. Okay, so it's several weeks later since you saw me film the introduction to this video. Here on screen, we've got my laptop all set up. We've got my mobile here with the application installed, and we're going to go through my findings over the last few weeks. What I liked, a few things that weren't quite as smooth as I would have liked, and ultimately after this we're going to go through some of the service options and see what you actually get included and what's not included in the review. So on the right hand side of the screen you should see my phone, so we can go ahead and make our way into the Netvue app. Again, I've already logged in. If we choose to, we can get a live feed of this camera straight away. You may also notice from the top of my mobile there that we are using cellular data. I'm making sure to be utilizing and accessing this camera utilizing just normal SIM data. The reason being that we could have accessed this camera using my Wi-Fi and directly interfaced in with the same Wi-Fi that the camera's on, but I don't think that would have been hugely representative of the experience when you're trying to access the camera remotely, not just for obviously bird recognition, but just general surveillance and security. So I just thought, just to be prudent, that even though the laptop's on Wi-Fi, when it comes to the phone we're going to rely on cellular data because this is a mobile app. So a lot of the features it's going to be tough to show you in this live feed. As you can see, that is a live feed view of what's going on. We've just accidentally paused it there. And from that live feed we can have audio in and out, as you can see, control. We can also have an audible alarm emitted from the camera that can be connected to some of the AI services, but more on that later. We've also got a light there that isn't really useful because it is daylight, so not really going to make out much difference with that light on there. And of course we have got two-way audio if we choose in and out of that camera. Again, we've got the solar panel already pre-attached to this camera here. We'll go through some of the images later on to show you. But from here we can change a lot of the settings as well. As you can see, the Wi-Fi strength of the camera is a little weaker right now because it's right the way outside of my house. Quite a distant degree of distance there from the property. But we can still maintain a lot of information about the camera. Everything from its location we can rename, the amount of power if it's charging, its actual Wi-Fi network if we want to swap between other Wi-Fi networks that we've registered there on the camera. On top of that, we can change some of the information and settings in there and find out more information about the camera generally when it's in use. When it comes to the motion detection, we can see that I've enabled it there, but we can adjust the sensitivity. I left it at the default medium. But we're going to talk a little bit more about the sensitivity of the camera and the reaction of that camera later on when we go through some of the feeds coming out of that. We can see that even though the camera, I've installed an SD card there, you're going to see later on just how much storage we've used, because this camera by default does not allow 24/7 recording. It's only got recordings happening when an AI or motion trigger is alerted. You can enable 24/7 recording, but again, that's an additional purchase. Get used to hearing me say that, because there are a lot of optional extras with this camera, some of which make a lot of sense as optionals and some of them less so. Sleep settings there, so you can choose if you want for the camera to not have motion activation at certain periods of day. Again, you can schedule that for different times of day. Again, SD card management, as you can see, I've used 1.3 gig of 29.1 gig of data. There is a lot of recorded footage on here, for good and for bad, but more on that later on, in terms of recognition and kind of things that I would have liked to have seen in this. Again, the lighting settings there, you can change it how and when you want that light to activate immediately, or whether you want to use it as a flashlight at night. And again, that's going to come down to if you're using more of the motion detection, potentially that squirrel detection as well, but more on that later. The audio settings there, you've got that audible alarm that you can enable as and when, and again you can have that alarm set for when the motion censoring is triggered, which will go off a lot, hence why I've got it turned off there. Moving forward, you've got the additional options there, some of which we've already discussed, some of them to do with the effect of the motion alert filters. You can set it up that certain things do not trigger the alert and some of them do, more on that later on. The cooldown time, now this is something that is an optional thing when you're setting the device up. But really, this should be set by default, something you'll see later on, because at the moment it's got a 0-second cooldown. And what that means is, if it detects motion, there is no period of time where it will stop detecting motion after that. The result is, in a lot of my recordings, initially when a bird or even motion was detected, even small movement, after about 10 seconds when the initial recording was happening, it continued to record, and it ended up producing a lot of unnecessary recordings. So although it's good they've included the cooldown timer for you to adjust, I kind of wish the cooldown timer was not set to 0 seconds, and that cooldown timer had some other integers, not just 0 seconds or 1 minute. But again, that really is something that should have been set a little better, maybe by default. But those are the main things. Netvue Protect. This gives you some understanding of the subscriptions you have in place, but later on we'll talk about some of the extra ones that they've rolled in there that can be either activated or added on the mobile app or on the desktop when you're logged in. So again, anti-flicker, straightforward, and setting up the camera was incredibly easy. It did set up first time utilizing an on-camera barcode to allow the camera to connect to your Wi-Fi. Fairly standard stuff. You would set the device up, you'd connect your phone to the Wi-Fi with the app, and then it would produce a 3D barcode, show it to the camera on its lens, and then it connected via the Wi-Fi. Nice, straightforward stuff. Not breaking the wheel, but still pretty good. If you choose to, you can share the content to the camera using a 3D barcode, but you need to utilize the 3D barcode with a Netvue app and with the permission access enabled, that if you don't have, you can't really use those settings. So again, you can't really just access the feed willy-nilly. You do need to use a lot more of the app in order to whether you want to take advantage of that. There is a whole bunch of different ways to do it, but again, you will need to use a lot of those settings all the way through there. So those are the main settings of the camera, the configuration options. Let's go through the thing you almost certainly want to know about the most. How well did it do in actual recognition? So as you can see, the little bell icon there that we've got at the bottom, we've got two options here. One, we can go into a timeline manager where you can scroll through different days that you've been having the camera running for, as well as scroll all the way through a timeline with all of those dots representing different recognitions of that camera over that time. But what I would like to show you is just an indication of what the alerts look like on this. So for example, while I'm talking to you, this camera is working. And as you can see there at the top, that first recording there has recognized some people walking past. So it's got the motion detection there. But as you can see, even though it's got the motion detection of those people walking back and forth, it's got no indications of what that is. I can download that file locally if I choose to. I can share that file if I choose to. And of course I can, play with the audio, replay it, skip to a certain point. But because only bird AI recognition is included, and I haven't enabled the options for AI human detection and more, it's not going to give me those options. So again, do bear in mind that although it's supported by this camera, that will be an optional extra. Moving forward, we can look at some of the recordings. So if we look at some of the recordings here, we have an example of a pigeon that's decided to sort of rock on by and have a little look at the feed. So again, we're using cellular data. If this was on Wi-Fi, this would be accessible a great deal more quickly, I should say. But as you can see, we've got this pigeon here, and if we use the show AI picture, we're able to see here that as it goes along, it's trying to recognize that bird, but because the bird is ever so slightly out of shot, it can't recognize it. So I wish there was a way to kind of freeze frame what's on here and then get the recognition to kick in. You're sort of at the behest of the camera having to see the whole bird on view. So for example, if we have a look here with some of the bird images here, and we select this one, we can go ahead, select the recognition, and as you can see in this one, because the whole bird was in view, we're able to see that it was a common wood pigeon there. And if we come out, we've got that bird recording, we can save that bird recording, we've got that recording there in the bank for us. And the same goes if we want to flick to other timelines. So if we make our way to right at the bottom, I've made some quick notes for different ones, and we make our way to 709, where we've got a recording there at 709. We can go ahead and have a look at this video here that I recorded in advance. As you can see, we've got ourselves a squirrel here. We can go to the AI recorded footage there. We can see it has identified that as a squirrel. But there wasn't a really straightforward way to activate that alert that it was a squirrel. I would have liked to have seen that I know that that's a squirrel, and what I would like to do is be able to click on that and be able to enable that alert moving forward. But it doesn't have that option there. so that's not quite as intuitive as I would like to see. It's good that it recognised it and it isn't just birds, but I would have liked a better way in order to long-term action that. Yes, if I've got the alert to my phone, I could have used logged in on the live view and then used an audio notification or just talked through the camera for it to move, but not having that option straight off the bat is, less helpful than I would have liked. Now, if we make our way to 3:59, we can see what I was talking about earlier on with the cooldown timer. Because with the cooldown timer, you will have to go in manually and therefore not have to deal with this, but because by default it's set to 0 seconds, you end up with a lot of wasted recordings there. And I just kind of wish that that was a setting that was enabled by default there. If we go to another recording on March 13th, and on March 13th we make our way to 7:13, make our way along, we're able to see at 7:13, again, more squirrel detection, but also now we've got different birds here. And again, initial recording there, it wasn't able to capture it, but as we move along and more of the bird ends in, we can see Eurasian magpie. Great, you can click it, find out more information on the Wikipedia page, and just more about the bird in question. And again, you can download it, but I've already downloaded that file, so it's not going to allow me to download it twice there. So the recognition does work, but I won't say that it's perfect. For example, if we go to March 12th and make our way to 6:43, so we'll have to make our way back here. At 6:43, we've got another bird here, so we can make our way in. And as you can see with this one, go to the AI pictures. And even though that whole bird is in there, even I know that that's the Eurasian jay. And to me, that should be enough information for the AI to identify that that's the Eurasian jay bird there. Same goes if we make our way into older recordings with other birds on screen. So for example, when we know we can see a lot of it on there, the AI, it's not quite as sophisticated as we'd like to see in its recognition a lot of the time. And although it does recognise a lot of the birds, sometimes in error, it at least is able to see them. So for example, if we go to March 2nd, and we'll keep things nice and festive, go all the way to the bottom of March 2nd, we can see ourselves a lovely little robin there. And this robin, again, not recognised, and then it's eventually seen there. But at that point, as you can see, it also saw it as a white-winged dove, which to me isn't great recognition, and it just shows that the AI is not quite as good as you'd like to see. Now, if we make our way into my gallery here and go into the Birdfeeder images here, and these are images that I captured during the course of my review, I'll talk you through some of the setup, because originally when I set this camera up, the recognition of this, it was just on an old shed, and you have to make sure that the bird feeder is quite high, as you might expect from any bird feeder there. But it was the idea that when it was set up over time, the recordings that were captured needed quite a lot of high light in order to be seen. All of these different recordings here, very few of these were recognised without substantial light in place, and the AI clearly required a decent amount of supported light in order to get the job done. And you know what, for you guys that follow the channel, there you go, there's your damn seagull. But it's more about the simple case that you need quite a high amount of light for this camera to work. I will also say that even though the device arrived with a band to attach it to trees, I would definitely go with the affixing model. That's not the right way to put it up. Do not put it up that way. That was a very dodgily way to put it up and bind it around a tree using the back area there. But overall, I'm quite happy when you do use the provided docks to put it onto. It's just because I was moving it around and I wasn't able to use it. The AI recognition isn't quite as good as I'd like, and it is definitely going to identify birds, and if you do take the time to change a lot of the settings, you will see a lot of good results in how it's used. But now if we remove the camera feed from there on screen, so I'll stop that recording there, we can talk a little bit about what's included with the camera, because as you can see, they do go into a lot of detail on the site about the recognition, how the recognition works, and the motion detection, and more. And indeed, if you go further into the Netvue site, you can find out a lot more about those added features and services: outdoor events, outdoor recognition of people, things, other different animals, different focuses of what you want the AI to react to. But as you can see, all of them have additional subscription purchase there. Some of them are one-off, some of them are a little bit more long-term, and things like the continuous recording. To me, that shouldn't be a feature that's behind a subscription. That should be allowed by default, and that feels not great to have continuous recording as an optional feature. Yes, they've got online servers, but if you've got a local SD card, I would have expected that to be an included feature. They are upgrading and adding AI features while the device is in use, and indeed when I set it up for the first time it received 2 firmware updates in the time that I was using it, so they're clearly spending time upgrading it. But overall, for the price tag that we're talking about, depending where you are in the world, and since the recording it has appeared on sale in a few outlets, I will highlight that the AI still has a little bit of room for improvement, and overall it is a very good product, and it's definitely a unique product that I would recommend to people that are very interested in both home security and bird watching, twitches and the like. But still, nonetheless, unless you are, got a bit more money to play with and a little bit of time to play around with those settings, this isn't as user friendly as some might like. It is a good camera. I do recommend it. Just bear in mind that the feature set does require a little bit of tinkering, and some of the more advanced features or more useful home features do still require extra features and payments there. But this has been my review of the Netvue Birdfy AI powered Birdfeeder camera. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Do let me know what you think in the comments. It's been a weird video, this one. This is an odd little product, but I have enjoyed playing with it. I'll probably leave it up for a little bit longer in my own home just to see if there's any capabilities, and if something new comes out from its utilization in my own home environment, maybe I'll make another video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.